Good morning, everyone. Okay, today we're going to talk about the saboteur in your spiritual business. How the the saboteur can show up. The saboteur archetype can show up in your spiritual business, how it can show up in your life, how it can sabotage you, your relationships, your work, your career, in so many different ways. So let's look at what the saboteur, first of all, card represents, and when it shows up. So when the saboteur archetype shows up in this card, we talk about the light attributes. The light attributes is actually our ability to see low self-esteem, those things that trigger maybe trauma, pain, that trigger self-sabotaging patterns, right? Think about the self-worth, self-esteem, and that devaluing ourselves and how that can show up. It shows up in a lot of holistic and spiritual businesses, and I can put my hand up in areas that show up. For me, we're always a work in progress, right? So in its light aspect, it's like putting the light, it shines the light and helps us look at different wounding and aspects and beliefs and unconscious beliefs and all sorts of things that can interfere and trigger us into showing up maybe even in patterns in ways that are not helping us progress, right? The dark aspects is where saboteur is very destructive. It's destructive to ourselves and and other people, right? That we just use, we want to sabotage things and we maybe want to destroy things, or we want to put other people down to put us up. We want to try and lift our power. Now, every single person has the saboteur within them. And we all, both the light and the dark shows up, and we all have it in different areas in life for different reasons. When we look at the light aspect of the saboteur, right? So let's look at this card. Right, it highlights. So when we're looking at the light aspect, think about this: when you can start seeing when your fears are, right? When you can see where there's low self-esteem, low self-worth, low confidence. When we understand our fears and we can shine the light on it, we can create change. Even just that, bringing an awareness to something starts the healing process because it helps highlight. Now, and what I mean is probably conscious awareness and awareness for healing. The shadow aspect, if you look at the shadow aspect, it includes self-destructive behavior or the desire to undermine others. Now, some people like it's almost like get into a habit of self-destructive behavior. And it's almost they are going down that path and nothing's stopping them. And sometimes we see that with addictions, right? The addiction has took over. The habit is took over. It's like almost they don't care. They're going down that destructive path and who cares? The one good example of it is when the rebel archetype is not mature enough and is not went through its wounding, it's reliving its trauma constantly. Now, the rebel archetype can be a very powerful archetype for creating change and breaking down old things that that don't serve us. But in its shadow trait, the rebel archetype can be extremely destructive, can be just want to do anything differently, doesn't want to follow any rules. The rebellious streak is almost, so if you have, for example, someone that has a strong rebel streak and it's like a childlike rebellious streak and they're working for you as an employee, if they can't rein that in, it can be very destructive to, they can cause lots of destructive patterns because they just want to do things their way. And in some ways, they're constantly looking for freedom. So we can understand that, right? Now, a lot of rebels, probably archetypes, probably suit the self-employment route, but even if you're hiring them as a contractor, if they don't want to, sometimes they're just so radical that they can create problems, right? Because it's like being the child that they just want their own way and they want to just do everything their own way, and there's no consideration for anyone else. So that is a form of, in many ways, self-sabotage and self-destruction. The saboteur can deliberately go to self-sabotage other people. And they deliberately, want to disempower everyone else, or they want to destroy that. And we can see that in different ways. We can see that when power takes over in the world, right? And again, we all can have, small elements of that in different ways, and it comes from wounding. But if we look at it in a bigger scale, when we see how a lot of powerful people want to just keep getting more powerful and gain more money, but they want to kind of destroy this, what they class as the smaller people, or the people that have not got what they've got. They want to put them in a place of weakness and vulnerability and almost destroy them so that they can gain power. That is the saboteur in its real dark state. So let's look at how exploring the saboteur archetype in your spiritual business is so important and so powerful. So when we understand the key traits that tend to show up in a business, and one of the ways that you can really explore the saboteur in a really deep way is getting to understand your main archetype and to understand your gifts and the different components, the different archetypes that are playing out in your life. And it's one of the things that I'm really going to be taking to a new level in the Ready to Step Into Your Soul's Mission coaching and healing program. It's kind of like a spiritual development program as well, because what that's going to do is help people unlock more of who they are. Because even within an archetype, so I could be a caregiver archetype, someone else could be a caregiver archetype, but it could show up in a completely different way. Just like someone can be an alchemist archetype. I work with a lot of alchemist archetypes, and I have in the past. And it's interesting, they all have a different type of energy. And when you're feeling it, their energy, and just what comes through sometimes when you're working with them, some of them have got a really strong heaven and earth channel, some don't, right? Some are actually way out here or down in the root, and some are very feminine, light, gentle, airy. Some have more a really strong masculine energy. Some are a wee bit giddy. Some are maybe not really that grounded and unsure of their gifts, cause a lot of trauma. There's different things going on, and then there's other quirkiness that can come through. And each one of those archetypes within that realm, they all have different unique gifts, right? But within those gifts, often sometimes it's like everything, our most powerful gifts can also sometimes be our biggest challenge. And a lot of that can be that we don't want to fully embrace that power, or we've not learned or mastered to harness those gifts, or we've had so much childhood wounding around those traits, those strong dominant traits, that maybe, for example, some traits were too strong for other people. I know one of the things that a lot of people used to say to me, and they actually still do this to some degree, is I was always quite a very generous person, a very caring person, and I would be a sucker for a sob story and a sob story, right? And get pulled into always everybody else's drama and, oh, God, that's a shame, that kind of thing, right? But also, I've found myself in situations where some people round about me took advantage of certain circumstances. I remember to do with money, particularly, even in situations when I really didn't have much. There was one person in my life who would constantly come looking for money and plead the victim, right? Where in many ways she was far more financially better off, but she chose to sabotage her money. She was not wise with her money. So that was her self-destruct pattern. What was my self-destruct pattern? Being the rescuer. I have to be honest, it's still, and there's some things at the moment, I'm at the moment really trying to, and I'm finding it hard. There's certain things that I'm realizing that I really need to stop doing in my business because it's still a form of self-sabotage. Now, we all have things. The more we can start being aware of it, then we recognize how to deal with it. Now, for example, so if we look at certain, for example, the innocent archetype is a beautiful archetype and that has a very strong connection to purity, divinity, right? It can really give this, when it shows up in its highest vibration and it's more enlightened vibration, it is actually very enlightened and evolved. But even in its just, its light state, it has a kind of that purity, that childlike innocence from it. It's very simple, it's basic, but it's pure. But an innocent brand or an innocent business, anyone with a personality of the strong, innocent archetype, they are very much the dreamer, the idealist, the purist. And sometimes they struggle to put the business into practice because they live in the dream world and the idealist, but they struggle with the practical aspects of things, or they resist and deny. It's like the child that wants to dream about everything and be everything, but it's in their head, but they struggle to put things into reality because in a physical, they resist maybe the boring stuff, the hard work. It's like a child want to be go to space and be I don't know, work for NASA or something, right? Now when we know a lot of things, you think, why would you? But anyway, you know what I'm talking about. A child that had this dream, right? But then the reality is that they would have to do all these things and they think, oh no, I just want to go there. I don't want to do all that. That can be a bit like the innocent, that they also only want to see the light. Look at the archetype of the entertainer, which is sometimes called the jester or clown. And they're actually a really a lovely archetype to work with because the archetype is light, they're fun, they have a sense of joy, they like to make everyone feel happy. So a business that has that energy within it, everyone wants to come to, for example, that place, that event that person runs, that clinic, where if they have got that kind of energy or business or shop or whatever it is, people feel entertained by that. It's not just they're going for the happiness, the playfulness, the joy, right? But the saboteur within that even business, or even if it was a person, is that archetype, is that sometimes it's the clown that hides, they hide the pain behind the humor, the fun, and they maybe don't take things seriously, don't want to face the dark, they don't want to face, they're a bit like the innocent, there's certain things they don't want to look at, right? So for example, they may not want to look at their finances, they may not want to look at things that are going on in the world, they might not want to look at things in their business, or a staff member, you know, or someone that's not really doing what they're supposed to be doing, is not showing up fully. They just want to make everyone happy, but it can destroy their business. Or they might have, you know, clients that are doing things that are not, you know, it's not aligned with their business, it's causing them problems. Again, this is what you've got to look at. So when we understand how we sabotage our success, and even when we sabotage our career, lots of alchemists, for example, and also even sage, you know, archetypes can be like this, where they have, so the alchemist can have a lot of power, is in particularly being able to help people see hope and possible miracles and magic and things like that. But how the alchemist can saboteur itself is make promises that it can't deliver, or try and put itself out as a master when they're only still, you know, they're still developing what they're doing, or maybe just going by what someone says and saying that something can solve something, and then their clients discovered that it's not what they said, or, you know, maybe implying that person only needs one or two sessions and they're going to achieve a certain result, when actually that client's had to go for 10, 20, 30 times, you know. So maybe not being completely honest in the business aspect, but from a personal aspect, the alchemist is so fascinated by the magic and miracles that they can get caught up in it. And they're maybe not always, from a business perspective, realistic or being honest about what their program definitely achieved. Maybe they've not tried and tested out what it can actually do. They're assuming because it maybe they have achieved something a certain that everyone else. So how can that sabotage? Well, that can sabotage because they don't get the testimonials, or people start mistrusting what they're saying, you know, that kind of thing. The other aspect is, which is really common, is they don't own their gifts. They're not stepping into their power. They're often all lost, lots of things, and they're getting lost within that offering of all these offerings, and they're not stepping in their zone of genius. They're not really stepping into what they're really here to do. And that can be the kind of what they call the witch wound and different aspects of the wounded healer. Now, I'm going to be honest, I've kind of questioned myself on this recently. I stepped back. Now, there was genuine reasons why some of my work, my healing work, I did kind of reduce over the last few years. And because I had a lot of energetic things going on and a lot of challenges that were not fully explained, and some things that I wanted to explore, I've spent the last 10 years really highly investing in lots of spiritual teachers around the world, doing lots of courses to evolve, you know, not just on my levels of consciousness, but more, I like to see things from a deeper and a wider perspective, because I do know that a lot of things that are taught mainstream in the holistic and spiritual industry are not always fact, and they're often just dipping their toe in. And from that perspective, I recognize that by doing even this branding and marketing aspect, even though it's something that I can help, I was not owning a lot of my other gifts. I was using it in with one-to-ones, but I was not fully embracing that. I was kind of, in a way, was a copping out. I think there's a bit of holding back of some of the other things that I do sometimes that I'm not vocal about, and that's why there's a lot of my work that I'm going to be stepping up. So it's about you thinking about what at the moment are you not stepping up? Are you frightened that you're not stepping up fully? You know, that what you're really here to do, you are just trying to do other things to make an income, or you're focusing on other products because you're frightened to step in your power. And that's a big, big thing. And it relates to all archetypes. It relates to all healers, all holistic business owners. There'll always be things. And what I talk a lot about is how many business owners that I've met in the holistic and spiritual fields who are not really doing what they're here to do. And what they don't realize is they're not doing their clients any favors, because think about it. If you stepped into your zone of genius, you're allowing other people then to step into their zone of genius, and then all client, people can then get the best of the best for everything they need, right? The more that you can start embracing and saying, right, okay, what am I really good at within my work? And you start doing more of that. What you're doing is you're helping serve people the way they deserve to be served. And you're making room for other people, those things that you're not so great at, you're actually allowing other people to do those things for those clients and what that means is people are getting, they're getting better services. I'm quite upfront about this, but I know that I've had to work on a lot of wounding around being sold deposits and services that were never a right fit. And in many ways, I was missold therapies, products, and services. Sometimes the healer therapist didn't have the awareness or the understanding, but also there was just seeing me as a cash cow. I've had circumstances where certain things were actually just not making me feel better at all, and they should have, right? And please don't, sometimes when I say that, people, often think, but you mustn't have been doing any work. Believe me, for over 30 years, I've done an average on at least an hour's work on myself each day. When I was in my 20s and I was mostly bedbound and housebound, I had a book that was as long as your arms, and I would do daily affirmations, I would do meditation, I would do all sorts of things. Even when I was lying in my bed, I could hardly lift my head. I was doing affirmations, I was doing all sorts of things. So, I did try and do as much in our work. Of course, there's sometimes blocks we have and we need help, but what I mean is we're talking about basic things that were the wrong things, particularly with some of the conditions I had. There were actually contraindications. Now, in many ways, those business owners were actually self-sabotaging because they were only focusing on making an income. And in most cases, I never went and complained. I could have went in and said, this has just been a waste of my time, or blah, blah, blah. I never did it, probably didn't, maybe wasn't doing them any favors. And still to this day, I have never been seriously disrespectful to any healer, coach, or therapist, right? But what I find interest is many of these situations people never ask you how, did have any benefit, and it's so important that we know if people have benefits. And when you are in your power in a business, when you are in full empowerment, right? You do what you're here to do. And even if you are criticized, you can accept it because you're coming from a state of empowerment, right? And you can think, right, okay, maybe I can do that better, right? When you're in self-sabotage, right, you are coming from such, well, there's different variations to levels to it, but when you're at your lowest form of self-sabotage, you may be doing things like procrastinating. You may be just selling your soul, and I mean in a negative way, that you just think, I'm past caring, I just need to get money, I'll do anything just to get money. And I remember many years ago, I employed a therapist that I knew, an older therapist who I respected dearly. And I employed her to come and do a contract with me. I knew at that point she was having financial issues, and she completely self-sabotaged herself. She basically, when we went to this event, someone mistook her for me just because of to do with confusion, to do with names. And basically what happened at this event, and it was an event where there was like NHS, there was different organisations, and they had sent someone to my stall to speak to me. And they assumed she was me, and she did not correct them. And she took some cards to do with basically some contracts and was not going to tell me. So she was going to take the contracts, but the person thought she would actually talk to me, the person that run my business, and she was getting employed through my business. But it was someone else at the event wigged what had went on and told me. Now, I don't know how other people would approach it. I didn't actually, I let it go. Don't know if I'd done the right thing or not at that point. I let it go. I was actually too scared to speak to her. I didn't know how to hurt her feelings, but I knew I wasn't going to employ her again. So I just didn't employ her again, but I felt sick. But one of the things that happened was a lot of people at that event, and and the people that had recommended me had worked with me for years. So basically what happened was word got about for her. Right. Now, it happened another friend that I employed, it was a long story, she done something similar and it backfired on her. Now, I understand in both cases why one had no work. The other one had some major stress at that point and was getting a lot of pressure from her husband to do with money. So most was to do with financial security. And it's interesting, money can be people's biggest saboteur, because even people that wouldn't ethically do things, sometimes they will do anything for money, or they maybe take someone's money and not actually do the work. I've had lots of contractors that have took money from me and not done the work or not done it the way they were supposed to. And that can be a form of self-sabotage, but then it can destroy, it can be a form of self-destruction in relation to someone else's business when someone doesn't do the job, right? So what we've got to understand is when we can see the light and shadow aspects of the saboteur within us, it helps us see things, right? Okay, am I showing up authentically? Where am I holding myself back? Where am I not showing up? Or it can even be triggers. And, sometimes when we're triggered by people, we blame the other person for what that person's doing or saying. But we're not facing that wounding of, and often our biggest triggers can be people actually telling the truth, right? We don't want to hear it, but it's actually the truth. And if we constantly react from a trigger point and don't move through it and we don't work through it, that can also be a form of self-sabotage, because it's an opportunity to grow, it's an opportunity to expand, it's an opportunity to face the wounding that is there. But if we don't grow. But in a business, there's certain key components that are really important. If you want to create a soul-aligned business, obviously you want it to be soul aligned with your purpose. You want to be fully building as much as you can around things that are aligned completely with your gifts and with your clients, and that you're going to give them the best, that you're going to give them value and they're going to get great benefit from what you're offering, right? So many people are try to sell things that they're not that great at, when actually they're sitting with something that's absolutely magical and powerful. And I see this so much. And often they undervalue and underestimate what the power is that they're sitting, but they're actually, and then also, I know someone very well who's very gifted and would go and start being successful, and as soon as they started to reach certain success or start momentum, guess what, they would procrastinate and move back. And there was a fear of their power, their fear of their gifts, their fear of showing up and being seen. And that's a very, very strong one, about that being seen, right? If you don't know what it is, and you don't know, you can't see it objectively, it can be hard. And that's why, it's always helpful when you get someone else when you work with, maybe a coach or a therapist or a healer, who can help you see things from a different perspective, can help shift through things. It can make a powerful difference. Okay. So the saboteur archetype in its light form helps us be see the self-esteem, see the things that we've got to work on. It's like a child, you're building a child up, you're trying to get them to say, oh, I'm not very good at drawing this, or I'm not very good at counting, and they just need a little bit of help. It's about that. It's about learning to evolve. It's like a lot of us have a lot of spiritual gifts, right, and gifts, but sometimes those gifts, they're very strong, but we don't know how to harness them. One of my most powerful gifts is my level of empathy and sensitivity, because it gives me a certain level of intuitive and what some people would class as psychic gifts, right? But I spent a lot of my life afraid of them, right? Overwhelmed by it. And it wasn't till in fact, one healer, very experienced healer, said these words to me, and it was like a click. And she calls me what they called an unruly empath. And basically, what an unruly empath was someone that was so sensitive and empathic, but could not have any control over it, had no control over what I was feeling, experiencing. And I would say I'm 1,000 times better, but that does not mean in some other levels, other people would still say I'm extremely sensitive, empathic, right? But where I was and where I am now is completely different. Now, I'm not saying sometimes if I'm maybe overtired or have some challenges, sometimes, yeah, certain things are a wee bit more heightened again because of where my energy is at, my vulnerability. But that was sabotaging because I hadn't learned how to master my gifts. And if you don't, it's like talk about a lot. And the reason why I talk about a lot, because most of the business owners I have, even if it doesn't come up in their archetypes, have the alchemist within them, right? Because the alchemist is about transformational change. But it's like everything, Rome wasn't built in a day. No one becomes an expert in something in a year, even 5 years. It takes us, and a lot of skills to master something. And we are, there's things nowadays, of course, energetically, we can evolve a lot quicker. So that's not what I mean. But sometimes, because of this instant gratification society and this, push of the button to get everything, people expect to have the skills of someone that's been doing something 30, 40, 50 years. They almost expect to be a master, and they think they can buy being a master, or by having the skills in something. It's almost like they can press at the button. And the easiest way I can explain is someone that's a carpenter. A carpenter may spend years becoming a craftsman, right? An apprentice. An artist can take years to refine their skills, their gifts, right? And then we have people who come in and they expect to do maybe a month's course, a year course, and they suddenly want to put them, they almost are trying to sabotage themselves by trying to expect themselves to be this master in something, right? Self-sabotage is the ability, moving through self-sabotage, is the ability to be compassionate and loving and valuing ourselves, right? When we can look at ourselves more objectively and own and honor where we are. And the destructive thing is that we are maybe frustrated. We're not seeing a light. We're not seeing our gifts. We are in self-destruct. We're going down a path of self-destruction, self-sabotage, because we're not owning our divinity. We're not owning our light. We're not owning what we're here to do. Okay. So if you would love to start moving more out of that, that saboteur, the shadow element, and start to step more into your power. If you want to unlock more gifts and see your gifts more objectively, see your purpose in a more clearer way, and to step into your mission with more clarity, even start to identify the type of archetypes that your clients will, what the archetypal traits that you have and the kind of traits that your clients will probably have that can be really game changers, the Step Into Your Soul Mission program is for you. It's a real deep dive coaching, healing, and spiritual development program, which is going to combine quite a few things. I'm going to be teaching some things to help you. It's a signature program. So it's, a lot of it is, my own signature stuff. And it's basically adapted from a lot of powerful teachers, different elements and how I use things, but also bringing in archetypes so that you can simplify and look at yourself in a powerful way, see your secret ingredients, see different things about maybe your life so far and aspects of your mission so that you can step with more solidness, more strength and power. And also see the common saboteur traits that come often with certain types of, your strongest archetypes, because most archetypes have certain key traits that are I don't want to say this one, but I can't think of different ones. Your biggest killers, like your biggest things that can, sabotage in your business. So when we look at the archetypes, you start to see very clearly maybe things that you should be eliminating from your business or getting someone else to do that you should never do, because in relation to your personality and your traits, it's so opposite that actually you're better hiring in another archetype to do that. Right. And also, I'm going to be, I will be talking about, maybe key things you should even consider when you're looking at different archetypes that you work with. It's something that I'm starting to learn and recognizing a deeper level that maybe, right, okay, maybe I shouldn't for whatever reason, because you can like people, you can really like people, but sometimes some of their traits, their personality, their beliefs, their core values, when they're so different from you as a business, can actually interfere with the energy. So these are all just some of the things that we will be exploring over the 10 weeks to help you step into your soul mission, because I really think this is time for us, a lot of us, to let go of a lot of the saboteuring traits that are keeping us stuck, that's keeping us small, and to step into our power and to start stepping into a mission. We all have such an important part to play right now in the world. And the more we can all move forward together with strength and courage and alignment, it's far easier. And it's far easier because we can, when we're in alignment, things become easier. It's clearer to see the path. And that's what that's all about. Okay, so have a wonderful week, everyone. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.